Hello and welcome with Pastor Joel Easy Cooking. I want to show you today how to make a great chocolate cake. A chocolate cake, once you make this cake, you'll never buy another chocolate cake. Uh, after this recipe, after I show you how to make this recipe, it's real easy. It's about a 20-minute process, about 5 minutes to put everything together, and 15 minutes baking in the oven if you're using a pan, which I'll show you here in just a minute. Uh, but if you're using a regular pan, baking pan, then it's going to take about 30 minutes, 35 minutes. At the end of this video, I'm going to show you how to make some German chocolate icing to go with this cake. Absolutely delicious. So let's get started. I'll first show you the ingredients and what you'll need. And this is your dry mix. You're going to start with 2 cups of sugar, 1 3/4 cups of flour, one all-purpose flour. Don't use self-rising, all-purpose flour. You're gonna use about a teaspoon and a half of baking soda and a teaspoon and a half of baking powder. So you've got baking powder, baking soda, 1.5 teaspoons of each. Next, you're going to use 1 teaspoon of salt, just a little teaspoon. Um, then after that, we're going to add 3/4 cups of unsweetened cocoa powder. You don't want to buy your cocoa powder that you make hot chocolate with. You want pure cocoa powder. You're going to add, for your wet ingredients, you're going to have 2 large eggs, 1 cup of milk, regular milk. You're going to add 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, 1 cup of boiling water, but you add that at the end. And of course, you're going to add a 1/2 cup of vegetable oil. And I've got a few things that you might want to have. These are optional. I'm going to cook the cake in this big pan, and the cake's not going to be that thick. It's going to be about that tall, but I'm going to layer it, and I'll show you how to do that. And I've got some parchment paper here, so I'll be using parchment paper and some Pam to stick my paper to. So let's get started. Let me first do my dry ingredients, and I'll move this all out of the way. Then we're going to do our dry ingredients. Then we'll go to the wet ingredients. And what I've got is a bowl and a sifter. Now this recipe calls for 1 3/4 cups of all-purpose flour. So I'm going to take 3/4 cups of the flour and sift it, but 1 cup unsifted. And this is optional. You don't have to do this, but that's what I'm going to do. So we'll get started. We're going to start with the flour. So I'm going to take 1 cup of flour and try to measure 1 cup of flour. Try to be precise on your measuring, and I like to do this to make sure I got all the nooks and crannies filled with flour. I'm a little low there, so I'm going to put a little more, and I'm going to go back and forth so I know I've got 1 cup. There's my cup, the 1 cup of flour into the bowl. Okay. Next, I'm going to sift 3/4 of this flour. So here is a 1/2 cup, and then I'm going to use the other quarter to make it a 3/4 cup. But I like to sift a little bit of the flour, gives it a nice texture. So there's my half, and I'm just going to pour that in there. and do like so. And then I'm going to do my quarter to make it a full 3/4 cup sifted flour. Like I said, you don't have to sift your flour. This is completely optional on the doing this, but I like the texture it gives the cake. Gives it a much better texture. Okay, so there's my flour. I'll move this out of the way. And still got a little flour there. There we go. Okay, so we've got our flour sifted. I'm going to take a whisk, mix that together a little bit. Next, I'm going to take and add my baking powder, 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder. So I've got one good teaspoon, 1.5 of baking powder. There's a good half. So I've got my baking powder in there. Set that aside. Next, I'm going for the baking soda. Same thing, 1.5 teaspoons of baking soda. Here's 1.5 teaspoons of baking soda. My baking soda is in. Okay, now I need 1 teaspoon of salt. I'm just going to open this. Take 1 teaspoon of salt. My salt is in. Okay, now I'm going to whisk this together so it all combines, so I can get it all combined before I pour my liquid in there. Okay, but now I need 3/4 cups of unsweetened cocoa powder. So that's I've got that whisk. I'm going with 3/4 cups, and I'm just going to use this 1.25 because I don't know what I did with my 3/4 cup measuring cup. So here is, and this is unsweetened cocoa powder. There's a 1/4. And here's a 1/2. So this should take care of it all right here. 3/4 cups. Okay. So there's 3/4 cups of cocoa powder, unsweetened. Now I'm going to mix this together. Get a good blend going here. And by whisking 3/4 of a cup, it helps combine that cocoa powder really good. So it combines really good. You want it until you don't see any more. You want to mix until you don't see any more white. And I think we've got it right there. Pretty much. You're gonna might still see a little bit, but we're okay. That's gonna mix when I pour my wet ingredients. So now I've got my flour and my dry ingredients mixed. Okay. So now set that aside, and I'm gonna go with my wet ingredients. And that's 2 eggs. Okay. And we're going to add You know what? I almost forgot my sugar. The 2 cups of sugar goes into the cake, the dry. So let me add that. I forgot to mention that, so that's important. So we're mixing it. I thought it didn't look right. We got this right. Here we go. This cake is absolutely delicious, folks. When you try this, you'll never buy another store-bought cake if you like chocolate cake. And then one day I'll make a vanilla cake. There, it's all mixed. So I've got 2 eggs. Okay, I need a half a cup of vegetable oil. I'll just use this same cup that I used for the cocoa powder. Half a cup of vegetable oil. Right at a half a cup. Okay. Put the vegetable oil up. Give that a little mix. And then we're going to add 2 teaspoons of vanilla to this mix. Vanilla extract. 2 teaspoons. What? Oops, a little too much. But who doesn't like vanilla? I love vanilla. Okay. And while I'm working on this, I'm mixing all this. Type in the comments, I love chocolate cake. And share this video with your friends. The end results are amazing. Okay, so far I've got my wet ingredients. We need 1 cup of boiling water. But first, before you add the boiling water, I'm gonna add this to the mixture, and I'm gonna add 1 cup of regular milk, cold milk. Okay, 1 cup of cold milk, and I'm just gonna use this here. 1 cup of cold milk, along with our wet. 1 cup of cold milk. Well, I'm gonna start mixing this, and after I get this mixed a little bit, then I'm gonna come back and add 1 cup of boiling water to this. It's gonna be a really wet mixture, but don't worry, don't panic. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be a moist chocolate cake. See there, I've got everything coming together so far. And then when I add my water in here, it's gonna make it even more wet, if you will. Okay, so there we go. I got it semi-mixed. Now let me add the cup of water. 1 cup of hot boiling water. And that's what you do. And you add this last. 1 cup of boiling water. Okay. Now, let me tilt it down so you can see. This is gonna look like it's too much water, too wet. It's gonna thicken as I mix. As I mix this, it's almost like fudge pudding. But you know what? When you bite into this cake, your taste buds will thank you. Here we go. Let me get this good mixed a little bit. So this cake mix is a little more wet than your typical cake mix. But the end results are amazing. So I'm mixing this up, and this is what it should look like right here. Give it a good mixture. You don't even need to use a blender on this because it's so wet and easy. You see? Okay, so now I'm going to set that aside. I'm going to clean off my pan a little bit. And I'm going to spray my pan. And the pan that I'm using is this right here. This pan right here. And what I'm going to do is take my spray, or you can just oil it. I like to spray it just to make sure it holds down the, well, that might be too big, but that's okay. At this point, my oven, I'm going to set my oven to 350 degrees. And you definitely want to spray, because that way when you take this out, it'll be a lot easier when you take this out. Okay, so my oven is going, I'm setting my oven at 350 degrees. Okay, and yeah, I mean, I'm just going to keep mixing this a little bit. So I've got all my wet and dry in this bowl. And a bowl about this size is perfect for doing this. Okay. So there you go. Nice, silky chocolate. Now I'm going to start right here in the middle and pour this right in here, just like that. And I'm going to get all of this out of here by using my spatula here, a rubber spatula. Someone asked me, how did you learn to cook? When I was 14 years old, my mother said, I'm going to teach you how to cook. And I asked her, why, Mom? She said, because when you get old, if you marry a woman that doesn't cook, you can at least eat. True story. Okay, just to show you what it looks like. It's thick. It's not like totally runny. Delicious. That was my taste test. Let me tell you, folks, delicious. Okay? Now, there it is.